cheer for old Notre Dame. Wake up, the echoes cheering her name. Send the volley cheer on high. Shake down the thunder, thunder from the thunder sky. What though the odds be great or small? Old Notre Dame will win overall.
Hello, everybody. Well, if you've been watching my college football shows up to this point, first of all, thank you very much. And second, we've talked about every major conference of college football with the exception of the Big 12. And for the third straight year, I'll give every Big 12 school their own preview show, and we'll begin that with the next video, which will begin the reports starting with the Kansas Jayhawks. So make sure to check back with us on YouTube for that, plus other Big 12 videos in future episodes. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the best of the rest. These are teams from non-BCS leagues that I think could have good seasons and with a lot of skill and maybe some luck along the way could crash the BCS party. Last season, no non-BCS school did this, but two came close. Boise State with a 12-1 record. Their lone loss came to TCU thanks to a good Horned Frog comeback and also some shady field goal kicking at the end by Boise. And then the other team, Houston, they were undefeated in the regular season, 12-0, only to lose at home in the Conference USA Championship game to Southern Miss. But let's now talk about the present and 2012. Best of the rest, we'll begin with Notre Dame. And the Fighting Irish. Last season, they went to a bowl game. A good year for Notre Dame, but nothing spectacular. The year probably will be remembered for more missed opportunities than anything else. South Florida, the season opener, should have blown South Florida out. They outgained them big time, but too many turnovers, too many mistakes, especially close to scoring range, doomed Notre Dame as South Florida pulled it out. The Michigan game, probably one that Notre Dame still hasn't forgotten, as the Irish, leading very late in the game with under a minute to go, forgot how to play pass defense, and Michigan came back and won the game. And the bowl game at the end of the year, appropriate for Notre Dame because they were leading fourth quarter, but Florida State came back and won the ball game in a nail-biter. So for the Irish, I think this year their offense will be better than last year. I think it'll be a better team overall for Brian Kelly's squad. However, I don't know if that's going to be enough because the schedule is gruesome, and we'll talk about the schedule in a little bit. But first, the good for Notre Dame. That's the offense. Tommy Rees looks like he'll be the man at QB. He took over during the South Florida game after Dane Christ really struggled in that game. Christ is now at the University of Kansas. But now it looks like it's Rees's job. Has to work out his character issues because during the offseason had some issues off the field with some misdemeanor charges. So hopefully in his case and for Notre Dame's case, all that bad stuff's in the past. Sierra Wood, 1,000-yard rusher from a year ago from the Irish. He's back. One of the best tight ends in the country returns, and he's more of a wide receiver. At least he looks like a wide receiver to me in the form of Tyler Eifert. And he'll have to be basically the main target of Rees. That's because Michael Floyd, their record-setting wideout, well, last year was the last for him. Offensive line looks solid. 3 of their 5 offensive linemen return. And one guy to really remember is Mike Golick Jr. Looks like he's going to be a part of that offensive rotation. And yes, he's the son of Mike Golick, the former Notre Dame defensive standout and NFL player, and of course co-host of Mike and Mike in the Morning on ESPN. So Mike Golick Jr., he's one to watch for Notre Dame as well. Defensively, no question that they are going to miss Aaron Lynch, who last season provided them with a nice pass rush, but now has moved on. He decided to transfer to South Florida, so that's a loss right there. Linebacking core, big plus for Notre Dame to get Manti Te'o back. He'll be All-American this year, provided that he can stay healthy, can play the ball very technically, and also, too, the fact that he pursues the quarterback in lightning quick time. A lot of people thought Te'o was going to go to the NFL. I was hoping he would go early because, of course, Oklahoma plays Notre Dame later in the year. So we'll see plenty of Manti Te'o throughout 2012. Safeties aren't bad for Notre Dame, but the corners is one area of vulnerability. If you're looking at the schedule for a school that claims to be touchdown Jesus, Notre Dame's schedule looked like it was made by the devil himself. Wow. Starting the year, Navy. That won't be an easy game. You play that one at Dublin, Ireland, plus you get Purdue, a bowl team from a year ago, as well as a third-place finisher in the Big Ten Leaders Division. But those two games look pale in comparison on paper, at least, to the two after that. At Michigan State in mid-September. They'll be in the top 20. Another top 20, maybe top 15 team, Michigan. That game at least is at home, but that's right after the Michigan State game, and Denard Robinson has given Notre Dame fits already the last 2 times that they have faced him. In October, you're facing a notable opponent in Miami. First regular season meeting between the Hurricanes and Irish in 22 years. That game will be at Soldier Field in Chicago. BYU was a 10-win team a year ago. We'll talk about them in a second. That game is at home, and that game looks like it'll be tough. And then you have a matchup as well against Stanford, a BCS team the last 2 seasons. They come also to Notre Dame. And I haven't even mentioned the juiciest part of the schedule yet. Late October, a game at Oklahoma, the Sooners. Right now, probably looking like a top 5 team in the country. And then the toughest should be the last game against a serious national championship contender. Could be number 1, the USC Trojans, and that game is at the Coliseum. If Notre Dame goes 8-4 off that schedule, you know what? Give Brian Kelly National Coach of the Year. That's the toughest schedule in college football this season. One of the toughest schedules I've ever seen any team have to play. That will be, no question, more than a handful. That's going to be murder's row for Notre Dame. They'll be better offensively. Got some issues as far as the defense. And I think it's probably going to be a 7-win season for them. Again, I just don't see too many victories with that schedule. It is tough. But I do think Notre Dame will get to a bowl game. Maybe next year will be a year in which Notre Dame will break through. Talking about the BYU Cougars, and last season, their first year as an independent, Brigham Young found out that September wasn't kind at all. Winning only 1 of their first 3 games, heartbreaking loss to Texas, and then getting blown out against Utah, starting 1-2. Biggest change probably occurred shortly after against Utah State, in which the quarterback at that time was Jake Heaps. He struggled, he got benched, and that made way for Riley Nelson. It became Nelson's job after that. BYU, after a 1-2 start, won 9 of their last 10 games with a respectable 10-3 record. Not bad for Bronco Mendenhall's squad in their first year as being an independent. Now, Heaps is just like the Notre Dame quarterback, Dan Christ, is now at Kansas. So it is Nelson's job. So entering this season, a lot of high hopes for Nelson. The running game, though, they have to replace DeLuigi. That's a big loss there. And Michael Alisa hopes to be the main guy at running back for the Cougars. Terrific wide receiver returns for the Cougars in the form of Cody Hoffman. He's back. And the offensive line, it'll be good too with the Bradens. Braden Hanson at 1 guard and that 1 tackle, talking about Braden Brown. So offensively, BYU does look set for 2012. Defensively, I'm not really that fired up about their defensive line. Last season, despite the fact that the defense was good in a lot of categories, they didn't force a lot of turnovers, and they didn't get to the quarterback very often, and that meant that defensive secondary had to work big time in a lot of games. So looking at them this year, the linebacking core to me looks like will be the nucleus of the Cougar defense, with Kyle Van Noy at 1 linebacker, as well as Brandon Ogletree at another. But again, pass rush will be the big emphasis for Brigham Young. The schedule for BYU, it's not as intense as Notre Dame's, but it does have several hurdles. BYU's toughest 4 games will be away from Provo, which absolutely stinks if you're a BYU fan. The home games look easy. The road games, anything but. At least 4 of them look difficult on paper. Playing at Utah, playing them in September, and then the following week, you go to Boise State in that blue Smurf field where the Broncos have only lost once in the last 7 years. And then October, it'll be independent versus independent, Mormons versus Catholics, the game at Notre Dame, and then the following week you play at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech probably looks the most winnable of the 4 because BYU, a good run-stopping team from a year ago, looks like they'll match up better with Georgia Tech than any of those other 3 games I mentioned because Georgia Tech loves to run the ball. But the other 3 games I think will be a chore for BYU to try to win. I'll look for BYU to have a 9-3 season. It's going to be very hard, at least in the regular season, to duplicate that 10-win total from a year ago because of those tough road games. And if they can't get to a BCS bowl, and I think they're going to have to go 11-1 to do that, then they are locked into the Poinsettia Bowl, a bowl that they have agreed to play in San Diego at the end of the year. Chris Peterson, not bad. Not bad at all. We're talking about the Boise State Broncos. 6 years, Chris Peterson's been the head coach there, and he's won over 90% of his games, 2 undefeated seasons, couple of Fiesta Bowl championships. By the way, he's lost just 6 times. That's right, just 6 times. He's had chances to go to other schools, but he loves Boise, and of course Boise loves him. This season, Boise State, don't get me wrong, will still be good. They'll still flirt with that 10-win total, but you'd be naive to think that they're going to be able to go undefeated. If so, this might be Chris Peterson's best coaching job yet. And it's not just because of the fact that you lose Kellen Moore, okay? That much is obvious. But also, you lose a terrific running back, your leading rusher, Doug Martin. You also lose Tyler Shoemaker, a record-setting wideout, an All-American, and offensive tackle with Nate Potter. He's gone. The offensive side, though, despite Potter's absence, the line still looks pretty good because you return 3 players. The ground game, well, it's going to be a wait-and-see thing because now DJ Harper occupies the role that Martin excelled at so well for the Broncos. At wideout, you do have Matt Miller back, so that will help. Defensively, this is where I have the biggest concern about the Broncos because they have a lot of starters to replace. The linebacking core looks experienced in the form of J.C. Percy as well as Brigham Young. But really, tell you the truth, that's about it. I mean, they lost almost every starter off of that defense. And defense, you know, that may not be one thing you think about when it comes to Boise State football, but they actually played pretty well over the past few seasons. This year, though, with so many new starters, it's going to be a very difficult chore for them, I think, to get to that level that they've been at in recent seasons. But we'll see how Boise does, especially when it comes to rushing the QB. The schedule for Boise, if they can win at Michigan State, which is an August 31st game in East Lansing, then all bets are off. They could very well run the table. They can't overlook BYU. That won't be a gimme. That game is at home, however. And then there's also a game at Southern Miss, defending Conference USA champion. In league, Mountain West, don't have to play Air Force. And, by the way, TCU is now in the Big 12, so you don't have to worry about the team, the only team that beat you in 2011. All eyes will be on the game at the end of the season, the finale, when you're taking on new Mountain West Conference member Nevada, formerly of the WAC. Last time these two teams played was 2 years ago in Nevada, and in overtime, the Wolfpack spoiled Boise State's perfect season in any talk about a national championship. So you know Boise's been waiting to get their shot at Nevada. That game will be on the road, of course. So for Boise, I foresee them winning at least 10 games because they've been able to get some pretty good recruiting talent out of California and elsewhere. So I'd still think Boise is going to put a quality product on the field. But it's crazy to think that they can go undefeated and look the same that they have, considering you lose the winningest quarterback in college football history and more, plus you lose other key components on both sides of the ball as well. And the Nevada Wolfpack, a team that now enters the Mountain West Conference for the first time. They've gone to a bowl game each of the past 6 seasons. Last season was not just off the charts for Nevada. They had a winning record, but barely, despite the fact that they had the 6th top offense in college football. Biggest problem for them, even though they moved the football, they didn't get as many points as they should have. But they have a lot of weapons back in what is a run-and-shoot type offense, so defenses have to be aware. Of course, when you think of run and shoot, you think about passing, but defenses better not ignore the Wolfpack's ground attack, and that includes Stephon Jefferson, a very good running back who returns for Nevada, along with the QB, that's Koei Fajardo, and wide receiver Brandon Wimberly. He's back as well. Offensive line looks good. Defense, now this is a big reason, in my opinion, besides the fact that the offense didn't get as many points as they should have last season. The front 7, well, they got picked on quite a bit, so that area has to be improved. Linebacking core, I think, will be better with Jeremiah Greenback at linebacker. Secondary returns 3 of their 4 starters, including the Duke, that is Duke Williams at a safety position. Nevada, first 2 games of the year could tell us quite a bit. Playing at Cal to open the season. The following week, you host South Florida. You can win both of those games, and people are going to be talking about Nevada. You got to play at Air Force in the Mountain West, so that won't be an easy game. And then at the end of the year, as we've already mentioned, Boise State will be the finale in the game. In my opinion, will decide the Mountain West championship. Does Nevada figure into the BCS if they go undefeated? That part I don't know, because I don't know how kind or how unkind the computer rankings are going to be toward Nevada if, best case scenario, they go 12-0. It certainly isn't out of the realm of possibility. I think Nevada is going to be a 9 or 10 win squad, and I give them a good chance to beat Boise since the game is in Nevada and not on that blue Smurf field. I look for Nevada to have a productive season, but whether it's a BCS season will depend upon if they can run the table, and again, how the computer rankings are going to grade Nevada. But still should be a good year for the Wolfpack in their inaugural season. By the way, for Boise State, this is their final season in the Mountain West, so it'll be a while before you see the Wolfpack and Broncos play each other after this year. Boise is off to the Big East Conference. That does it for my look at Best of the Rest, talking about teams from non-BCS leagues and their impact on football this year. Our next show, we get right into the teeth of the Big 12, my team-by-team reports. We'll start with the Kansas Jayhawks on the next episode. We'll see you next time.